Welcome everyone. Thank you for coming out for this informational meeting. I am Mike Leifheit. I am the current board president of the Van Buren School District. If you're kind of keeping up with everything, as you're aware, Mr. Myers is retiring at the end of this school year. So if you're following the search process, you understand that we have a new super. So I want to take this time just to introduce to everyone that came out. This is Brian Bloom. He is currently the assistant superintendent at Northridge. So he just signed his contract today, and he will be starting with us at the beginning of the new school year, which will be August 1st. So he is now going to be in listen mode. He wants to learn just as much information as you all are here about our district. And he will be around, I think, after this, but he does have to get back to his job where he's at right now tomorrow. But wanted everyone to at least see a name to a face, and this is him. So welcome. Now I'm going to turn it over to the administrative team to get started to go over the information that you're here to learn about. So thank you for coming.
Still hear me that way, or do I need to pick it up? Good evening. I would like to welcome all of you here. I'm happy to see all of you here. Levy campaigns and taxes are a challenging situation, and I don't believe there's one person in here that likes that. Not any of the school personnel, not any of the community. Unfortunately, that's the system that the state of Ohio has put into place, and that's why we are asking and presenting to you information on what the needs of the district are. So I thank you for coming this evening. I thank you for wanting to get the answers to the questions that you have and to understand the situation. I greatly appreciate that you're willing to do that. As we start off tonight's meeting, what we will be doing in tonight's meeting, this is just an outline. We'll be talking about the things listed there, basic facts, the history, the revenues, the expenditures, the future, and then we'll have a question and answer period. Speaking of the question and answer period, I believe all of you got a card as you came in. At any time during the first part of this presentation, if you have a question, you can write your questions on the card. If you would like to get to later as well, if your question's not answered here, make sure you put your contact information on the card as well. Later we'll collect those cards and we will be utilizing them as we go through the question and answer period at the end. As you're well aware, the Van Buren School District is asking the community for a 1% income tax for the general fund for the general operations of the school district. The general fund is used for the day-to-day operations of the school district. It's not used for any building project. And as you can see on the screen, these are some of the important things that money is used for in this district. We're trying to maintain the programs that we currently have, to maintain the quality of the school district, to keep the Van Buren School District a school district of choice within the local area. One of the questions that's always asked is, on this income tax, what is taxed and what is not taxed? This is a general income tax. These are some of the highlights of what would not be taxed if this levy is approved. Social Security benefits will not be taxed. Disability and survivor benefits are not taxed. Railroad retirement benefits are not taxed. Welfare benefits, child support, property received as a gift, of bequest or inheritance, and workers' compensation. The easy way to say it is, on your Ohio income tax return, whatever the state of Ohio is taxing you on, when you get to the bottom line of your state income tax form, that is what this will be taxing. All these things are excused on the Ohio income tax form, and therefore they will be excused on the district income tax. And again, the general operating funds are used for the day-to-day business of the school district. This is just a bucket list of what that means. The general operating fund is the main fund of the school district. It's used for the staff, it's used for transportation, it's used for the utilities and the upkeeps of the buildings so that we can run the school district. That's what it's for. You can see the other areas that are not affected. Food service is self-sustaining. Grants that we get that are limited in how they can be spent and how they can be used. Bond issues as permanent improvements are things that we do that have a lifespan of 5 years or longer, which includes capital projects, technology, and those type of things. And student activity fees are not used in this way. So the general operating fund is, you have heard that the district is going through a performance audit. Mr. Cross helped arrange that. From the existing properties. The inflation factor was taken out. Since that inflation factor was taken out, all school districts have to go back on the ballot on a regular basis. The interesting fact is it's been proven that if they would have left House Bill 920 out, the inflation factor would have been the same as it. The school district would still be receiving the same amount of money that it did before they took the inflation factor out. We just wouldn't have had to go to the ballot all the time. Many school districts have a history of going to the ballot on a regular basis, every 2 to 3 years. The history in the Van Buren School District was a levy was passed. The first levy after House Bill 920 was passed in 1986. It took 10 years before the district needed to ask for more money. The next levy that was asked of the public was in 1994. It took another 8 years before the district had to ask for more money. The next operating levy wasn't until 2004. That was another 10 years before the district had to ask for money. In between there was a bond issue that was passed in 2000. Now we are asking for new money in 2020. We have went 15 or 16 years since the last time. We have been very fiscally responsible and tried to stretch the dollars that were given to us at that time as long as possible. Another thing that happened to us after that levy was passed in 2005, the state did away with the tangible personal property tax. Tangible personal property tax was very important to this school district. At one point, $2 million of our revenue came from tangible personal property tax, and at one point, the tangible personal property tax made up 34% of this district's revenue. The state did away with the tangible personal property tax, created the CAT tax for business and industries. The intent was to make the state of Ohio business friendly by changing the tax structure, which is fine. But what they did was they took a local tax away and created a state tax. Luckily for us at that point when that happened, we had a huge TIF on County Road 99 that came to an end. TIFs are basically tax abatements for improvements that the county or the community can place on the community, the school district, one of the biggest ones that is affected by that. That TIF thankfully came off the books soon after the tangible personal property tax went away. Without that TIF coming off, we would have been on the ballot much, much sooner than we are now, because that helped us to keep our head above water. Another thing that has affected the district is our aging facilities and the repairs. Yes, new construction was done in 2000, and that new construction was much needed and did great things for this school district. But even when that new construction was done, if you go back to the strategic plan that this district had in 1995, which led to that new construction, people completely understood at that point, even after that construction, there were aging parts of this district that still would need to be addressed. The oldest part of this building was built in 1917. This building since then has been made up of 8 different additions: 1952, 1967, 1984, many additions. Some of those additions are the reasons for some of our facility problems at this point in time, because things don't match, things don't work, but it's caused a lot of problems. But the point being that even after that, the new construction was built, people realized there was still a need for more facilities repairs at that point. The district moved forward, and in 2009, we did another strategic plan, which was a follow-up from the last one, which had been in 1995. That strategic plan looked at finances, that strategic plan looked at buildings, that strategic plan looked at curriculum, it looked at all those issues. And that set the path for what the district's needs were going to be in the future. It was realized that another bond issue would be needed down the road. It was realized that two renewal levies would have to be put into the system. The renewal levy from 2004 and the renewal levy from back in 1996. Those all had 1994. Those levies were renewable levies, which every now and then had to go back on the ballot. So we knew that there would have to be another bond issue down the road. We knew that there would be constant renewals that would have to be on there. And we also realized that eventually we would need to ask for new monies. As we looked at that, it was decided that the biggest need, based upon the balances of the school district at that point in time, was to attack the facilities issue. It was a good time to look at that. We had resold bonds. We were going to be able to get the project done as cheaply as possible. It came out of the strategic plan in 2009 to start looking at that, and gave us a timeline on when to look at putting that on the ballot. That was put on the ballot and unfortunately did not pass. After the failure of that levy, we again reevaluated. We did another strategic plan in 2016. In 2016, we also looked at all of those issues, some of them becoming much more prevalent. The district again saw the financial issues and the number of issues that would have to go in front of the district, and also tried to figure out what the best plan was to do that. And that kind of answers when people are asking, well, why was this not on the ballot sooner? And why was this? Because it was very carefully considered. What were the greatest needs? When did they need to go on the ballot? Because you had to figure when this renewal levy was going to be, when you were going to ask for building money, when you were going to ask for new operating money, because the last thing you want to do is see something on the two issues on the ballot at the same time. It's challenging enough that it was almost going to be spaced out with an issue one every year for the next 3 or 4 years. But that is the reason why it was carefully thought out. The community was involved in that with the strategic plan, and every effort was made to make this money last as long as it can and to spread it out to be fair to the taxpayers. In the meantime, when we lost the tangible personal property tax, the state of Ohio did partially reimburse school districts for part of that. It was that reimbursement and the TIF coming off, it was able to keep our head above water. But the state was gradually doing away with that reimbursement, to the point where it was supposed to last for several more years, but a few years ago they sped up that reduction, and now that money will be completely gone, I believe, by next year. That entire $2 million will be gone from our budget over the last almost 15, 20 years. But it will be completely gone by next year. So we were getting some of that, but now that's totally gone. Part of that planning that was done with that strategic plan was in November 2019, we took that levy that was first passed in 1994 and made it a permanent levy instead of a renewable levy. Knowing that new money would probably be a renewal levy, the emergency levy was still a renewal levy, putting another renewal levy on the ballot was going to be difficult and a challenge to the community. So, and thankfully the community responded, and that levy was approved as a permanent levy and now no longer has to be renewed. In 2019, that, according to the plan, that's when the district started to look at the new monies that were going to be needed, and we put that in front of the public, and unfortunately that did not pass. Other reasons why we didn't ask for money earlier was the district had a nice cash balance at one point. And in 2015, when we started looking at that, right after the bond issues had failed, when you're sitting on several $1 million in your bank account, it was not the right time to go out and ask people for additional money. We needed to wisely spend that money and make it last as long as we could, which we have, but I don't think the public would have responded to asking for additional money when you're sitting on millions of dollars in your bank account. And that was the decision that was made, and that's why the decision was made. Another question that comes up is, well, you keep spending money and you spent down your reserves. Why did you do that? What have you done? Why didn't you do things to not spend that down? I will tell you that this district has been very, very fiscally responsible. We have done our best. The teaching staff and the staff here have been very cooperative over the years to help bring staff costs down. This board and the union agreed to pay freezes. They agreed to freezes on the steps on the salary schedule. Several years ago, they agreed to even stretch the salary schedule so everybody was not reaching the top of the salary schedule quickly. Staff has had to pick up more of their share of the premiums on the health insurance and all the other insurances that we have. We've done a lot of energy projects in this district to try and keep our energy costs down. All of our exterior lights are LED now. In the big rooms in our building, we've tried to go to LEDs. We've done all of that by using PI funds over the years. So we've not spent general operating dollars to accomplish those things. We use those PI funds to try and keep our utility costs under control. We've negotiated new contracts, we've looked at services, and we've realigned our insurances with property and liability. We have done many things to try and control our costs, to stretch these dollars as long as possible. Where do our revenues come from? This pie chart will explain to you where our monies come from. And you can see by looking at that, the largest part, the blue part of that, is our local tax dollars. Yeah, you want to handle this one? Is this yours?
Yeah.
Did I go one too far?
One too far.
I'm something.
It's fine, no, it's good.
I should have known that. I was just rolling right along.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, I'm not really good with the podium, so I'm gonna kind of hang out, I think, here. This is a breakdown. These figures for our revenues are for the close of business halfway through the year. So these were as of December 31st. So this gives us a good idea as to what the first half of this year has looked like. So you'll notice that the largest portion of this graph has to do with local taxes. So that's where the majority of our funds come from. And I think it makes Van Buren in general pretty unique. And you'll see in a subsequent slide why it's specifically unique. But the biggest part on this pie chart is this green section, the $625,000. That is our foundation funding. So the interesting thing about that is not only that $625,000, that's actually illustrating a negative cash flow. So based on this, all of this money is gone, plus an additional amount that actually comes out of your local taxes. So we're actually supporting the unfunded mandates that come from the state that have been identified for the school district that we're responsible for. So that's the important piece that is illustrated by this.
Yeah, it's right there.
Okay. They usually don't let me have the clicker, so I apologize. So what factors are considered in determining state funding? So the formula that we use to determine how much money the school district receives from the state changes every time there's a new biennial budget passed by the legislators. So that's a every 2-year process. For many years, they've been trying to work on that formula to make it more equitable for school districts across the state. And in doing so, 2 primary factors right now have to do with median income and property values. So because of those, Van Buren has been identified as a wealthy district. So it's because your median income in this area is reasonably high, and the property values are very sustainable. They're at a very good rate. So some of the unfunded mandates that I talked about before, these are the deductions that come off that state foundation. So there's College Credit Plus. There's a requirement for us to be part of a local educational service center and get services from them. There's mandated educational service based on student needs, as well as audits, and students who open enroll elsewhere. That also includes a community school transfer. So anyone that decides as public choice to go elsewhere, the same would be for scholarships to other places. The less you know about state foundation funding, the more interesting this graph is. So you'll see in the center here, this is the 0 line. I actually created this graph that started back in 2007 and goes to projecting what we have for 2020. Take that formula, multiply it by the number of students we have in this district, include some additional factors, and that's the gross amount that we receive. The problem is, before they deposit that gross amount into our bank account, the space in between the blue and the red line is deducted. So you'll see since 2007, there's only been 2 years where there's been a positive cash flow for state foundation funding. 1 year we received, I believe it was $8,000, and the other year was about $30,000. you'll notice that in 2020, you see our gross revenue is $1.2 million and change. We surpassed that zero line. We're actually paying the state over $665,000 this year. That money comes directly out of your local tax base. It comes out of the tax dollars. So overall, it's actually over $1.9 million that we're losing this year for state foundation. So how do our revenues compare to local school districts? You see Van Buren is one of the lowest revenue per pupil for fiscal year 19. We don't have the figures yet for fiscal year 20, which is the fiscal year we're in. Similar districts earn over $4,000. The statewide average is over $6,000 per pupil, and Van Buren is at $2,800 per pupil. So why do we receive less funding from the state? So we talked about this a little bit in the slide earlier. It has to do with us being identified as a wealthy district. And so it kind of places us into a different category. What the legislators are telling us with the current funding formula is that because of our valuation in this area, because of the level of the average income, the legislators believe that we have the ability to go back to our community to actually fund the school district instead of relying on money from the state. So this is one of the factors that the state uses to identify whether or not you're a wealthy district. This is called the district local tax effort. So it actually takes the average income, it actually takes the valuation. So it starts with the real estate valuation in this area, and it determines how much revenue we're receiving from local tax revenue. And then it compares it to not only the average income across the state, but the average income in this community. And it comes up with a specific factor. This blue line in the center is like 1. So the factor that makes it pretty much equal is the factor of 1. So these school districts that are actually above the blue line, they're actually participating in excess of what the state thinks that they should participate for local tax dollars. You'll see that Van Buren is here. We're actually at 0.47. So essentially 50 cents of a dollar. Similar districts are at 0.86, and the statewide average is directly at 1. So how does our total revenue compare? So the district total revenue per pupil in fiscal year 19, Van Buren sits at $11,000 per student. Similar districts across the state, and these are districts that actually have the same demographics that would be considered very close to how Van Buren is set up. They're actually $12,000 per student, and the statewide average is over $14,000 per student. So we're lagging a little bit behind there as well. So how does Van Buren Schools actually spend their dollars? Again, these figures will go back for the close of business for December. So this is mid-year results. Since we're an educational entity, we're essentially a service provider. So we provide educational services for students. What we fund is programs, educational programs for students. In order to run those programs, we have to hire talented folks to be able to do that for us. So you see the two largest pieces of this pie are salaries and fringe benefits. The next biggest piece is purchase service. Now purchase service is kind of a mixed bag of things, anywhere from utilities to people coming in to fix the plumbing for us. So it could be a whole number of things. But the other big piece of that green pie is we actually purchase services for students. So it could be any supplemental educational service that a student would need to help them get through their educational career. And you'll see the smallest portion of this pie are the things that we have direct control over, which is supplies and equipment. And there is a small amount, this kind of lavender piece of the pie here, that's essentially another unfunded mandate that represents all of our local bank fees and the amount that we spend on our audits. So those are bills that just show up. You say, okay, you can pay this one now. So there has actually been some conversation that perhaps the reason that we're coming back to the community for additional funds is because we're paying our teachers too much. So we built this graph just so you can see an illustration. I don't know if you can see it from the back, but it's all Hancock County schools. So we compared ourselves to all the folks in Hancock County and what they're paying their average teacher salaries. And then we also compared ourselves to similar districts across the state, as well as the statewide average. So you'll see we're kind of in the middle of the pack here. We're all pretty darn close here in the center. The orange bar there is Van Buren. This would be the similar districts. They're all actually higher than us, and the statewide average is even higher. So how do our expenses compare? So this is the same group of folks from Hancock County. It's all the area school districts. We are right towards the middle. Everybody in the center there is almost essentially the same. The statewide average is just over $12,000 per student, and we're at $12,002, so we're a little bit under the state average there. So this slide is actually talking about the return on your investment. So we're investing in student programs. We're investing in the educational services that we provide for students. So here's our district total revenue. So you'll see that Van Buren, we actually are a little bit underneath for our similar districts and the statewide average. This last bar here is the average Hancock County school district. So you'll see that we're the lowest when it comes to total revenue. Total district expenditures in the top right-hand corner. You'll see Van Buren's a little bit higher than similar districts, but we're still beneath the statewide average and the Hancock County average. But because we've invested in the students on the expenditure side, you'll see that we're absolutely the highest in this area when it comes to the performance index and when it comes to the indicators met. And those are two things that we actually have to compare ourselves to on the state level to make sure that we're performing in the right way for our students and their educational needs. So this graph is a combination of things. This graph is built on the 5-year forecast that was submitted to the state in the fall. So you'll see the pink section is everything that was forecasted. You'll see the white section is everything that was actual results. So you can see that there was kind of a turning point. You can see where the board actually made the decision to kind of spend down that cash balance, to keep the programs at the same level that everyone in the community is used to seeing. And when the projections come, the only thing we can look at is what we know right now. So we follow historical trends, and you'll see that the expenses are going up and the revenue is going down. And if we were to keep in that trajectory, that of course is not sustainable. So looking to the future, there's a few things on our timeline that we want to make note of. So this first dot is March 2020. That's the 1% income tax levy on the ballot. That's very important to the school district at this point. In August 2020, our new superintendent begins their tenure. We're very excited to have Mr. Bloom join us at Van Buren. In November 2020 is another important date for us, because that is the date that we need to pass the renewal emergency levy. That levy actually brings in $1.275 million for the district. And that's very important that we pass that levy. In December 2020, this will be the time that the debt service for the construction of the building actually falls off. So the taxes for the bond payment will no longer be collected. So that's actually a really great day, because it means your taxes will probably go down a little bit at that point. In April 2021, if the levy passes here in March, that will be the first payment that the district will receive for the income tax that's collected beginning January of 2021. And by 2022, according to the state, it's anticipated that we'll receive the full amount of the revenue that's attached to the income tax levy at that point. Turn it back over. To Mr. Meyer.
So now the bad news, and that's the question: what happens if the levy in March and the levy in November possibly fail? That will be extremely detrimental to this school district. If that levy fails, we have already put together a reduction plan. Not only a reduction plan that we had to send to the state, but we put a plan together that clearly shows areas that could be affected. As you can see, up to 20 staff positions may have to be cut to balance that budget. On top of that, our extracurricular activities will be affected. Either we will have to cut some of those, we may have to put in a pay to participate fee in order to keep even some of those programs running. And there will obviously be a hiring and a spending freeze will continue, which we have already put in place at this time. The other piece that's up here is school districts do affect your property. And if a school district is doing well, your property values will reflect that. If we have to make the cuts that we have to make, that will mean a loss of programs, that will mean a loss of students, it will compound itself, and it will eventually lead to a reduction in property values within the school district. It has historically been proven all across the state of Ohio and all across the country that if school districts fail, property values will decrease. The other piece that you could, if you go back to the graph that Dawn showed, when we would not even start collecting on this, if we pass this in March, we would not even start to see any money until April of 2021, and wouldn't even begin to receive the full values on that until 2022. So that some of these reductions will have to stay in place even if this levy passes. We will need to continue to probably maintain a hiring freeze and maintain the spending freeze, and maybe still have to look at some extracurricular supplement, because even if we pass this, it will still be a year before we start to get solid collections out of it. Last couple of things. And just to paraphrase, the passage of this levy in March will generate $2.4 million for this school district. If you compare that to the tangible personal property tax that this district lost, this is merely going to put us back in line to where we would have been if we hadn't lost the tangible personal property tax. This will also allow us to maintain the quality of education, the programs, and the staff that we currently have. Without it, those things will have to go the other direction. It will not allow us to grow and create many new programs. It will not allow us to expand in a lot of different areas. All it will do is allow us to keep our head above water and maintain what we currently have. We're asking for the minimum of what we need to keep going down the path that this school district, I believe, expects, what the community expects, the success that it's had, and the pride that we have in this school. Goals for the future: better communication to the community, diversify our local revenue stream, and advocate for the community. You can see email addresses up there to talk to our legislators. And what we're going to do now is, if you have any questions, if you've filled out your cards, what we will do is we will begin to come around and collect those cards. While we are collecting those cards, the administrative staff will come up here and they will talk about the good things that are happening in their building, so you understand what we're doing and why we want to maintain what we have. So,
Okay, good evening. My name is Kevin Schauf. I'm the high school principal. As he mentioned, we talked about maintaining what it is that we do here, some of the excellent services and programs that we offer our kids. We want to share some of that with you. We're very proud of the performance indicators and what our kids do academically and what you might see in a state report card. But honestly, we are way more than that. We focus a lot on the relationships and experiences that we're creating for our kids throughout all three buildings. We want to share some of that information with you. Also, one of the goals he just mentioned is better communication. We're constantly trying to figure out ways that we can better communicate with each other, with the parents, with the community, etc., and focus on the things that we're doing and share that story with you. So when we talk about your investment, that is what we're asking for with this levy, is to help us continue to do what we do and even further develop some of these programs. One of the ways we do that, this is a district profile that the team put together last fall, highlighting the things from the previous school year. Again, it's stuff you're not going to see in our state report card and stuff you might not see in the Courier, but it's stuff that's happening in this building, in these buildings, on a daily basis, and we're very proud of it. So I'm not going to get into the details of that, but there's hard copies in the offices, it's on our website, there's pictures of our kids doing awesome things and winning various awards. Strategic plan, again, as an administrative team, especially looking at spending freeze and some of the things we're currently experiencing. It's very important that we prioritize and strategize what it is we're doing on a daily basis. We refer to the strategic plan that our board approved a couple years ago on a regular basis. We're constantly having these conversations. There's kind of some broad areas here. You see these 6 broad pillars, if you will, of our strategic plan. You'll see specific goals as we go through these next slides of the programs that we offer and how they relate to our strategic plan. As an administrative team working with our teaching staff, we've set goals for this year, obviously related to our strategic plan. At the midway point of the year, we had 30 objectives and goals set for the year, and we've accomplished 16 of them, and we're constantly having those conversations of what we can do to continue to chip away at those goals for the year.
Good evening. My name is Cassie Schaefer. I'm the Director of Integration and Innovation for the district. Part of the strategic plan, you'll notice down at the bottom, we reference the goals that Mr. Schaaf was speaking about, and we really wanted to enhance the communication throughout the district among the staff, student, parents, and community. And one piece of feedback that we continuously received was that our website was extremely difficult to navigate, to find contact information, so we wanted to start there since this is really the face of our school. So now you'll notice this year that our new website is up and running, and you're able to see news, events across the district, and then our live feed, which also ties into our social media aspect. Across the top, you can see we have information for the March 2020 levy, and then the Explore tab opens up all of the different areas that you can find additional information about the different buildings, about the different areas such as district information, board information would be housed there. And then the schools, what's nice is each school has their own page that the principals then update so that you're able to keep up to date with the newest pieces of information from them. Another piece that we worked on with the strategic plan was really engaging and empowering our staff to operate at the height of their licensure capacity. We preach all the time that we want an individualized, personalized experience for our students. We need to model that from the administration to our staff. And then we want the staff then to pass that down to the students. So this was the biggest change that we made with professional learning. We want our staff members to be professionally driven. We want them to have a personalized learning opportunity. So all of our staff members were able to choose different activities throughout the year that aligned with their personal goals and those goals of the district as well. As of January, our teachers had over 1,000 contact hours, and we also saved the district travel and PD expenses by building capacity with our own staff. So we really believe that we have fantastic staff here in our district, and we can learn from one another. We don't have to go out and look for new things. Our teachers are doing fantastic things here, from technology integration to project-based learning to engaging practices with students. So we really wanted to focus on the strengths here in order to also save the district additional funds. Another piece to the professional development, we created an in-house website where each staff member was able to reflect on their learning experiences and again, just provide another avenue for people to learn from one another. And we recently just wrapped up the professional development cycle for this year with a district-wide staff meeting where we had different members of the staff present to one another and share some of the things that they were learning. We hope to expand this program next year as well, so that we can reach out to other area schools, learn from them, but really take pride in what we're doing in Van Buren and share that with one another.
Something that we're very excited about at the high school, a little bit in the middle school as well, but it's preparing our kids for what's next after Van Buren schools. Traditionally, we send a lot of kids to college. Feel like we prepare them well for that, but there's so much more. Not just our kids, but the parents as well, having informed decisions when those kids leave Van Buren High School as to what they're entering, whether it's career, military, college, etc. Really being prepared to make those decisions, which we know can be quite stressful. So we've developed a program that we're very excited and very proud of. Here in the middle, you see Writing for Your Future. That's a class we've offered for quite some time to our sophomores. In that is a sophomore shadow day experience where the kids go out and they're in the community, in the workforce, shadowing a career of their choosing. We've done that for years, but we've always wanted to do more, right? Well, then what? What can we do for them their junior year? If they had a bad experience, we still claim that that's still a good experience. It's one thing to take off their list. Now we need to get back to the drawing board and help them prepare. So building from that, we've put this entire program together. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail for time's sake, but in the 8th grade, we have kids starting to think about and exploring various career options. Freshman year required this year, this current school year, all freshmen take a career development course. They start to narrow it down, what education is required for this career, what kind of salaries are we looking at, what can we expect in the workforce. I talked about Writing for Your Future. We have foundations courses for kids who are pretty sure that they want to go into business, engineering, or medical. They can choose one of those courses and they're getting their feet wet with the terminology that might be used as sophomores to best prepare them for their upper class years of junior and senior. Or if they're going to go into Millstream, that starts at the junior year as well. They're now better informed on what that might look like. We've created career pathways, working with CCP students, Millstream, as well as the courses we offer here in-house. How can we best package these courses to best prepare this kid for what it is that they want to do? Started an internship program intended for our seniors, probably going to open up to juniors as well next year, where students can be released for up to 2 periods, very individualized program partnered with a mentor out in the community and in the workforce, where that kid is getting some real world experience for sure. We've always done college shadow days, a kid's excused for the day with pre-approved form to go visit a college. We're now doing that as well for job shadowing opportunities. If a kid wants to go see what it's like to work in this or a day in the life of, we're going to do a shadow day opportunity for that kid, and we found that to be extremely beneficial. We are also a High Schools that Work. A grant we received to help us continue. Again, we're looking for grants a lot just to maintain our fiscal responsibility, but looking with a passionate group of teachers who are really excited about this, and we meet about on a monthly basis. A couple teachers going to a workshop next week to, again, just look at ways we can continue to develop this entire program.
We were excited in December. My name is Jay Clark. I'm the middle school principal here. We were excited in December that our middle school was designated as a national school to watch, which is, as it says up there, we're one of 19 in Ohio right now, and one of just under 500 in the nation. That's really exciting. What we had to do in order to accomplish that, this actually started about 11 years ago. We submitted an application 11 years ago. It was not approved. We submitted an application 10 years ago and got a site visit, got some really good feedback, and over 10 years, we've strategically chipped away at that and gotten to this point. This designation comes, some of the things we had to do in order to get there. We had parent feedback, we did student feedback, we also, our staff worked together outside the school day, obviously, to prepare an application. This is a really a terrific honor for our staff and our students, but what's even better is it's a continuous improvement model. So we'll use this information every 3 years. We have to redesignate, and so we want to continuously get better, and that will push us to do that. And it's great because it's all centered around young adolescents and doing what's best, educating with them in mind. Something else that we believe strongly in the middle school is service learning. So our kids, last year, we have advisory groups or multiple age level groups. Each of our teachers has one of those groups that meets weekly. And last year we partnered them with 14 different nonprofits in the area. And they worked with that nonprofit. They learned about their mission, which in turn really gave them a broader sense of the needs of our community, which was really nice. And these groups, it was everything from the Humane Society to City Mission, Chopin Hall, Crime Stoppers, everything in between. So they worked with those different nonprofits, and they were able to create promotional materials for them. So they created video, they created other promotional items, and then they also, from a STEM side of it, they had to create a collection device that was placed in the community for donations for that organization. And then we have some folks from the community come in, they judge those, we have a winner, you have to have a competition whenever it's middle school. And then each year, our 8th graders do a service day where they are in the community in the fall. We raked a lot of leaves here in the village of Van Buren, but we always then come back and we reflect on that. And that's a really important piece of the experience in middle school, is to kind of understand the world beyond the walls.
I'm Mike Newcomer. I'm the elementary principal. And be respectful, be responsible, be safe. If you walk into our building, you're going to see that signage all over. We started that program, PBIS, 4 years ago. It now is a mandated program or implemented program that you need to do by the state. So several schools are just getting on board with this. We started 4 years ago, like I mentioned. We received the bronze award, and we're actually applying for gold in this coming May. We're actually probably going to back down and look at silver, because we actually had to go through a tiered fidelity check. That is basically means we have to go through our trainer that trained us in this, and I'll get into a little bit more depth of what this is exactly, to say, hey, are you doing this with fidelity? Are you doing this consistently in our building? And we actually were able to check all those boxes for silver and gold. And our trainer said, you know, you're really doing awesome. But we looked at some of the things that we're doing in gold, and we could apply for that application, but we think we could do it even a little bit better. So we're looking at silver, which is an awesome achievement if we can get that, and then look for gold in the future still. What PBIS is if you've ever taught or been in a classroom before, teaching isn't just the academic side anymore. There's social emotional learning that we have to cover now as teachers and educators. What that means is we have to really look at the kids and show them different things on how to act and how to react to situations anymore. this is part of this. This is a positive behavior intervention and support system. That's what it stands for. And again, you can ask any of our kids, kindergarten to 5th grade, hey, what does it mean to be a Black Knight? And they can say, it's going to be respectful, be responsible, be safe. And they know that, and they know what that looks like. We have lessons designed and planned that the teachers teach and show what that means to be respectful, what it means to be responsible, what it means to be safe, how that applies not only academically, but then also in the real world, in your social emotional health. So we're really proud of this. The entire leadership team, the entire teaching staff has really bought in, and we're really proud of our bronze award and hopefully then our silver and eventually gold as well. So I encourage you, if you ever are interested in seeing more, stop by our building. We'd be happy to show you. We have several local schools coming to us and asking us, hey, how did you do this? How did you do that? And we've been able to help Upper Sandusky. We've talked to Pandora and other schools. And this June, my principal's organization, Mariah Holman and Brian Binding, who are part of the leadership team of my building, we're going to be presenting at my principal's organization in Columbus about how we've implemented this. So we're really excited about this and to continue this program. And lastly, you can see the strategic plans have been linked to all the different things that the principals and we talked about. And the K-5 literacy program, Wonders, we implemented this past year. What we were really seeking in the elementary was a program that focused on our reading program, which was guided reading, but really to strategically pull it together and make it more unified. And this has done that, and this helped meet us our sixth goal on the strategic plan to provide a K-12 curriculum just to be a lifelong learner and give those 21st century skills. The really cool thing for me, if I go in any classroom now, I can see a consistent lesson being presented again, no matter if I'm in 5th grade or the kindergarten. And it creates that cohesiveness. And not only does it teach reading, which is obviously a foundational skill for our students, but it also embeds the social emotional learning, like I mentioned in PBIS as well, which we're really excited. So it brings everything together. So we're excited about continuing beyond our first year of Wonders and learn how this is going to continue beyond that.
Does anybody else have any questions, any cards that we didn't collect?
I have some verbal questions I'd like to make if I could, please, as a taxpayer.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, let me try and address some of these on the cards first. The first one I have here is, we have a very large tax base and we receive very little from the state, question mark. So that is actually true. There's a strategy embraced at the state level that says if you have a large tax base, if you have a reasonable average salary in your community, you have the ability to go back to your taxpayers for additional funding, and the state's not going to provide it for you. So I don't anticipate that there's going to be a different philosophy anytime soon embraced by the state in that way, but I can't say that for sure. So
I have a question about that, though.
Yes?
We have a huge tax base in corporations and businesses that moved into this tax district, especially in the last few years, major corporations. And I looked at Whirlpool for one, and they're paying half the taxes they were 10 years ago, and their buildings several times bigger, probably worth $100 million, and they pay 1/10 of the tax that I pay on my property for my value, my real value. And I just think if we keep giving the state money, they're just going to keep asking for more and give us back less. And I think this school's great. I think you do a great job here. I really do. Nothing against Van Buren, but we're getting robbed by the state.
The point you bring up is absolutely true and absolutely right. Several years ago, when the county did a reevaluation, they valued that plant at a certain number, and Whirlpool appealed it. It got reduced slightly. 3 years later, it went through a major reevaluation. We thought that Whirlpool again peeled that one. We thought it was going to be reasonable. They basically asked to reduce the value of that plant by 2/3 of what the value was. Oh, and that also happened to be at the same time that we're doing a $40 million expansion to the plant.
How do they get away with it?
Well, as a school
It's
district,
still our
as a
property.
school
Our
district in
property
the
goes up
county,
in taxes,
the
in
school
value,
district
we
in the
gotta pay
county,
more.
the school district in the county fought that. It
With
was
good
ruled in
attorneys.
the school district and county's favor. The business has the right to appeal that to Columbus. They appealed it to Columbus. We were shocked when the State Tax Appeal Commission in Columbus actually sided with Whirlpool. At that point, we had the opportunity to appeal it ourselves. We appealed it to the Supreme Court, went through a mediation at the Supreme Court, and still continued to lose.
I just know they're gonna come back for more. That 1% already adds to the other 55, 60 taxes we already pay in fees and taxes in the USA already. So that 1% don't sound like much, but if you added the 50 or 60 other taxes, it's a lot of money.
We have had
So
several businesses.
I just think Columbus needs to give us a lot of our money back that they take. So go ahead,
Well,
I don't want to take all your time.
we don't disagree with anything
I will
that
be
you said.
against that, this
That's
tax
just
levy,
another
because of
piece.
that, but I will do everything I can to help fight you, to help you fight to get your money if this goes down, this levy. Because I'm retired, I have time.
Understand.
I will, I'm tired, and I'm trying to get cheated out of our money. We work hard in this district, and they give us very little back of what we pay.
And I can tell you, assure you, as a district, we fought that as far as we
I'm
could
sure
fight
you
it. and
did, you
still
probably don't
lost.
have the money to pay for the attorneys it needs to fight this. It'd be millions of dollars. Maybe I ought to raise some money for attorneys and not send it to the state, keep it for ourselves, and then hire the attorneys to do it. Everything's so confusing today. What you told me about all the funding is still confusing, the TIFs, the state formulas every 2 years, the inflation factor, you know. I understand inflation, but we have property values that go up. And when those go up, our taxes go up. Our taxes went up $200 a half recently.
That's the confusing part.
It's confusing, it is,
Because
it's all
in
confusing.
a reevaluation, the school district gets no more money for that levy than when it was passed other than new construction. So when a reevaluation comes up and your property value could go up and your taxes might go up. Some people's may go up, but not as much, and theirs may not go up. But the whole point is the district gets no more money. For every person whose taxes go up in a reevaluation, you can be sure somebody else's went down. You don't hear from the people whose taxes went down. We hear from the people whose taxes went up. But just because that person's taxes went up does not mean the district gets
How's
more
come
money.
taxes go down in this area if we're so rich around here? It seems like everybody's property values ought to be going up. I can understand the inflation because the inflation is not really the same as the property values going up because of, you know, economy, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, it's just very confusing to me. The whole tax code's confusing to me. 10 million words is what the tax code is in the United States of America.
And as confusing as the tax code is, school finance is just as, if
I
not
believe
more.
you guys are doing a noble job. I am not complaining. I love every one of you. But we're getting robbed.
Okay, let's go on to the next. What is Van Buren's current student-to-teacher ratio, and how does that compare to other similar districts? Do you know our
See,
student-to-teacher
the
ratio?
elementary, I believe our student-teacher ratio is 17 to 1, 17 to 18 to 1. And I believe in the upper grades, it's closer to 21, 24, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was in there.
Now, I went to school a long time ago. We had 30 kids in the class. Can it be done? Yes. But we believe the quality of education is served by keeping those class sizes reasonable. Teaching today is much different than teaching was when I was in school too many years ago. Teachers have to address the needs of different students at different levels in every classroom. It is much more challenging. And if you've got 30 kids trying to individually teach versus 17 to 20, much more is going to get accomplished with those students. It can be done, but the level of the education will suffer.
Next question, what cuts will you keep if passed?
Any question?
Can you use
What-
the microphone? Oh, okay. Can you hear me better now?
No.
No. Now, can you hear me? Okay. I'm technologically challenged, I apologize. What cuts will you keep if passed?
Well, again, I kind of touched on that earlier. Even if it passes, we will probably continue a lot of the spending freeze, we will probably continue a lot of the hiring freeze, and we will also have to look at other issues that may have to also still be addressed. The last thing we'll want to do is cut those programs that will affect the students in the classroom.
Why did you feel the need to push what would be lost if the levy fails? I don't know if I would consider it pushing what would be lost if the levy fails, but there most definitely is a need for information. There's a true reality about our revenue stream in this district, and if we don't increase our revenue in some way, we have to decrease our expenses. There is no other way to get out of deficit spending.
It's not something we want to do, we just want to make it clear it's something that we will have to do.
Why was the security level posted on Facebook? I don't know what that means.
Okay, so I'll address that. So on the Facebook deal, so the success for BB schools or whatever got on there that they're gonna lose a resource officer. And I know it wasn't intentional for anybody. I just want to make it known that you can't make information like that easy for somebody. I mean, there's the security around here is soft as it is. And that's a whole other issue. But posting things like that and posting all the things that are going to be gone, and get to my next part of my question on why the kids were involved and told that they're going to lose all that stuff. I'm not originally from the school district, and I agree with this gentleman. I think it's a great school district and everything. But it was just all negative push for the levy part. And like I said, we haven't been part of the school district very long, so we don't know how long you guys have been fighting. I'm glad you shed light on that for getting the revenue in that. But I would like to see more of the board come out and just pushing the great things that are going to happen with this. And then the last part of that question was, I'm real short at writing, so there's not a whole lot.
It's okay. I'm glad you're doing this because I wasn't sure how to answer this, so go ahead.
Well, that first part of that question is, I'm just asking if there's any planned cuts that you're gonna keep even after you're receiving the funds? Or does it just go back to regular operating level? And then the last part of that question kind of ties in with, have you guys made an assessment or an estimate of what you would need to grow? Are you gonna come back in 2 years and say, hey, we can make it better, but we need to ask for this much more? Like, what was with the decision of not just going for what makes everything great? If you said, hey, we're gonna have the highest paid teachers in the area, we're gonna recruit the best, I'm on board with it. But I just need to know how great everything's gonna be and then go ahead.
How this levy plays into the future. That's why this levy is 4 or 5 years. That's why this is a 5-year renewable levy, because we don't know what we're going to need 5 years from now. Maybe the state will come through with more money and we won't need any more. Maybe it'll get even worse, and at that point we'll have to look at.
They'll keep robbing
But that's why we've put this on a renewal cycle, so that we can adjust as we go forward. But again, we didn't want 3 renewal levies on the ballot. That's why we took the last one last November, made it permanent, because we've needed it for the past 30 years. We're going to continue to need it.
Well, is it me that does that? I'm so sorry. So, we're also in the middle of the performance audit. I think it actually would behoove us to mention that now. And what the performance audit is going to do for us is, I don't know. I think it's me. I'm so sorry. What the performance audit is going to do for us is identify efficiencies that perhaps we haven't looked at yet. And we're looking forward to actually getting the results of the performance audit. They're actually currently just working on the scope of this audit. And actually, I wish I probably would have started like 6 months ago, because then we would have a better idea of what it is that we're looking at and maybe some areas that perhaps we haven't looked at yet. So, but I bet we won't see the results of that audit until probably August. That's what I'm thinking. So I think that'll help us determine, you know, maybe what direction we need to move as far as efficiencies.
And just 2 quick comments on that. It was nice seeing, you know, what the plan was when you get it and what you've done and everything, but, like for the future, in 5 years from now, if this passes in 5 years from now, I'd like to see over the 5 years that the board's really communicating the great things that are happening along the way. And I don't know if I didn't see it or the communication wasn't right, or maybe it was a combination of both, and that could really affect the taxpayers, is just that communication was getting out with the great things. Because when you just see it, you guys are gonna get attacked on, are you doing everything you possibly can to cut costs and everything else? And I mean, most of us at the end of the day don't care what it costs as long as there's quality education on there, and that you guys are showing that you've been responsible.
To a certain extent.
Getting that out there. And then on that gentleman's comment on the property tax, just out of knowledge that with Whirlpool or any other business, it doesn't matter if they have $100 billion that they sunk into a building, they're gonna go and argue of what the resale value of it is, and that's what the whole thing is gonna get drugged to court. They're gonna say, if we have Joe Snuffy come here and buy this building, it's only gonna be worth $40 million, and then that's the fight that the school's continuously gonna have unless they figure out a way to tax it.
That's why we have 80% of the lawyers in this country, because everything's so confusing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you have to fight for everything you get, and it's sad. And we just want to be honest people that, you know, support our school and our children. I love my kids, and all that. I'm sure everybody here does too.
Well, and that's a periodic business strategy. I mean, that's just,
It's a matter of principle with me.
yeah, I agree.
I'm not trying to cut off my nose and spite my face.
Right.
I don't want to bash Buren, because again, as a business, they're doing whatever they
Oh, I got no
have to
ties
do.
to it.
But the whole point is, I guess I'm going to reveal one number here. The value that they asked, why they were doing a $40 million project, was the value of that plant at $4 million. I offered to buy it from them for $4 million because I'll turn a profit on that building at $4 million. But again, we know how can you do a $40 million expansion and then say the whole plant's only worth $4 million?
Because they have the money and power to do it.
Well, there are things that we can control, though. There's tips. From what my understanding of the tip is, and over the years we've gotten into several with 236, 99,
Yes.
Home Depot. Those things aren't necessary for the school support.
Well,
It doesn't add to our student enrollment. From what I understand, Home Depot didn't add one student. No one moved into Van Buren, built a house because they got a job there. So, but we gave them a tax break based upon them moving into our community, but it didn't benefit the school one bit. Those are the things that I would like to see, things that we can control, being smarter and wiser in the future.
okay, valid point. But then there's some caveats to that you have to understand. Home Depot, even when people apply for TIFs and tax abatements, there's a certain level, and it has to surpass a certain level before the school district has any right to have any say in it. Home Depot first was above that level when it got rejected. They then went to the level that the state allowed where the township nor the school district had any right in it. All of the other TIFs and tax abatements actually have been beneficial to this district because a lot of them have ended at the time when this district needed money the most, and we were able to keep going without having to come back to the taxpayer.
But if we didn't have it in the first place, we would have that additional funds that would maybe have put us in a situation.
We'd have
Not
steady
completely,
revenue.
but yeah,
They may
we-
have not come here, they may have not come here and built.
But yeah, but I don't think, when you look at county and townships and all the other tax breaks, again, the school part of it is so small. It's not gonna be a decision maker for Best Buy or Lowe's or anybody, the distribution center, not in our school district. I mean, you look at the county gets the big benefit, the township gets the second, the states probably get, just give them the biggest rate. But the school, do we really need to be participating in that level of it? We can't even govern that money of ourselves.
The point is, though, the only TIFs and tax abatements that are left in this district is Home Depot, which I believe ends this year. There's one on 236 that goes on for another 10 years, but the district has been held harmless on that one, and we get our fair share of that one. And there's one other small TIF down on County Road 99, near where Ohio Logistics, the road expanded, the traffic light was put in. Those are the only ones we really have right now. So we don't have the plethora of those situations that we've had in the past. The new thing that gets thrown at us now are CRAs, Community Reinvestment Acts, which again, we don't have any control over. But this district is not dealing with nearly as many as we used to.
Next question. There have been comments made in the community that the school is hiding money. I believe this is a misunderstanding on how school funding works. Can you briefly elaborate? First of all, yes, we are not hiding any money, number one. That is probably best illustrated by the documentation you can find online at the Auditor of State's office. We have a financial audit every year. It tells you exactly how much money the district has and how we've closed each fiscal year and whether or not there was any concerns by the Auditor of State when they reviewed those books. I will say though, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I've been in this business a really long time. Van Buren is one of the most unique state foundation funding schools that I have ever seen. I have never seen such a consistent negative cash flow when it comes to state foundation support. I've never seen that before. So it makes you very unique. And it's not necessarily a complete bad news sack of information. It means that you have a very strong valuation in this community, and it means that it's a community that has a reasonable income for most of the households that reside in this community. So those are two really great things, but I've never seen the negative cash flow to this degree before. I mean, it makes the district very unique. But to go back to the first comment, we're not hiding any money. So, and everything we do is public record. So if you have any questions about something specific when it comes to the finances, feel free to reach out to me or come in to see me, and I can explain it better, probably one-to-one. So why has the levy shifted to a 1% traditional school district income tax versus the original announced in early February, a 1% earned income tax? The paperwork was filed as a traditional income tax from the inception, which would have been in December. So,
Yeah, I don't know where that one piece of misinformation came from originally, but this has always been a general income tax from day one when the board approved it.
the income tax is taxed, okay, are the income that is taxed listed all considered earned income, as noted in the March 4th CEO of Ohio School Board's letter to the editor of the Courier? I'm not familiar with that.
What I'm referring to there
I'm sorry.
is on this page of the brochure, it first says income that will not be taxed includes and has a list.
Yes.
And then it has another paragraph. Income that is taxed includes, and it's wages, salaries, tips, and a lot of it.
It's only the income that you're required to report under state income. That's what will be taxed in tax money. Only the revenue and the income that you're required to report on your state income tax return.
And those, from what you were saying, those may not all be earned income items.
Correct.
Correct.
Right. So they're not
Even
all
though,
yours.
see where I got that
Anyone who is
originally.
collecting Social Security will not, because if the state of Ohio doesn't make you add that in to your income to to the state of Ohio, then it won't not be collected by the school district either.
Right.
But yeah, what bothers me is pensions, other than the railroad group, but pensions, traditional IRAs, the required minimum distributions from that, the 401ks, which, well, you can say, well, we did a good job the past 40 years, but now we're getting some clawback against those funds. And seniors do relatively want a fixed income too, so is it fair? Well, not surprising it is.
We fully understand that situation, and that's why voting has to be an individual decision. All we want to do is give you the facts and let you understand what the situation is, but you have to make the decision based on your needs and what you have. I'm in the same group, I understand.
Now, there was a letter to the editor, or reader's views, I guess it is, in the Courier. It came from the CEO of the Ohio State School Boards Association, and he refers to that as a 1% earned income tax. So he's got that same bad information.
Yeah, well, it
It's the
comes from
taxes
us.
you pay after all your deductions is what it is, I believe, isn't it? After all your deductions you have in your state,
The easiest way to,
exempt from
the
Social
easiest
Security
way to
and all
remember
things.
it is that if you have to report it on your state income tax return, then it is taxable. So, but it, you know, this piece is actually run by the state, so, it's actually paid directly from the state, to the state from the taxpayers.
They give us back how much ever they feel like giving us back.
That's right. Well, that's all of the questions I have on the cards.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes, sir.
Just trending for the next 5 years, do we see our income continuing to erode through this next 5 years, or is it starting to level out because all of these things are coming to the end?
You talking about the local share of the money that we get, or are you talking about state share of the money, or?
I guess I'm talking about everything. Do we continue to see an erosion for the next 5 years in income for the school?
If the levy passes, or if the levy passes, or?
No, forget the levy. You know, it doesn't matter either way, all right? Are you gonna see, what are you projecting the income coming into the school district for the next 5 years? Is it going to, is your projection it's gonna level out, increase, or decrease?
Well, the first thing I'm gonna say to that will all depend on the renewal levy that goes on the ballot in November. Even if we pass this and the renewal levy in November fails, we're back down the same hole.
Okay, say the renewal passes, okay? What are you trending, you told us and made very clear that our income's been slowly being reduced, right? Okay, so we're here today. It's been reduced for the previous 10 years to today. What do you see today for the next 5 years? Is it continuing to trend down, or is it tapering off? All right?
The hope would be that we can maintain that. And that's one difference between an income tax and a property tax. As people's income tax increase, that will mean more money to the school district versus as people's property values increase, that does not necessarily mean more money to the school district. So we're hopeful that that will stay continuous for us as long as possible. Do we see it as a major growth? I don't believe so, but our hope is that we can maintain that.
A follow-up to his question, if I may. So do you feel that the foundation money from the state is going to continue to decrease like it's been doing over the last 10 to 12, 15 years?
I think the state foundation funding is going to continue to change every 2 years.
Yeah. And so far, it hasn't changed to our good.
No, it has not. It has not. And I know that there's a new bill that's attached to funding Mr. Copton
Patterson.
and Patterson, yes. But I don't believe that we're winners in that formula either.
And unfortunately,
So-
even that is, at this point, stalled in the legislature.
It is.
from what I've
Thank
been
you.
told.
Yes.
Wasn't in the other meeting that I was at that you told us that since they've done that tax break on inventory tax,
Yes.
the state had minimal dollars in the
Yes.
rainy day fund, and now it's over
When-
2 billion with the fee.
Yeah, when that started, there was 89 cents, I believe it's 89 cents in the rainy day fund. So when that happened, and they were also, what, $8 billion in debt?
Yes, state of Ohio was $8 billion negative.
So,
Took away a local tax, created the state tax, and got out of their $8 billion hole.
and they earned an additional $7 billion that's sitting now in the rainy day fund. And the rainy day fund got so big, it used to be that they could only have 5% of all the anticipated revenues that the state was going to receive in the rainy day fund. They couldn't have any more. We have so much money in the rainy day fund now, they had to increase it. What's it at, 8.5? 8.5.
So they want more
Am I
from us
making that
now.
up? 8.5, I think. Anyway, so it's increased.
Keep that in mind when we vote.
Yeah.
What about
Another-
there's tobacco taxes that they're getting too, that's supposed to be the schools, are we getting into that?
No, we used to get tobacco money years ago. We don't get tobacco money like we used to. It used to be attached to technology. And actually, I'm dating myself and how old I am that I remember tobacco money. But yeah, we haven't received that for quite a while, unless
I
it's
don't
mixed
know.
with something that I don't know about.
The real answer to the savings account, the
Rainy day fund.
You had a previous governor that wanted to load it up, so when he went to New Hampshire to be the next president of the United States, he could show everybody that he balanced the budget, it is 100% political. That's the real answer.
When you bring up the tobacco tax, that reminds me of a situation that I fought in Columbus concerning. The state of Ohio has built school districts for many school districts across the state of Ohio. And at one point, they were funding 90% of the funding for those districts. A lot of them are down into the upper 50% right now. At Van Buren, we applied for some of that money, and we were told by Columbus, yeah, they'd help us, but they'd give us 5% of the cost of our buildings.
Because we're too rich.
Liberty Benton's, yeah, because we're rich. Liberty Benton's new buildings, the state's paying 50% of the cost of those. For us, they would give us 5% of the cost. My argument in Columbus was, remember the major federal tobacco settlement money that was done?
That's a lot of money.
They took that tobacco settlement money and they put it in the school building fund. And at that point, I said, then it's not fair. The people of Van Buren deserve as much of that federal tobacco fund money as any other school district in the state of Ohio. We still want, we're gonna get 5% this year.
Yes.
If I understand the tax, I'm kind of dumb at this, so forgive me. I'm just asking questions. This tax levy will tax our paychecks each week. We pay 1% of what we earn.
Yes.
That goes to school, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So everybody in all this industry that's in our district, everybody's paycheck will come to Van Buren.
No.
No, it's where you live.
It's where you live.
Again, let's talk about the confusing tax structure in the state of Ohio. If this was a municipal income tax, what you're saying would be correct.
Correct.
But this is a school district income tax. School district income tax can only be charged on residents within that school district. Doesn't matter whether you work there or not. So you can work somewhere else and be a resident and pay it, but you can live somewhere else and work here and not pay it.
So those industries don't really benefit us anymore.
They probably don't care one way or the other.
Now,
Because you cannot collect income tax on a business for school purposes.
so none of the factories and their profits will come, that 1% won't come to us. It just comes out of ours.
Yep. But it's only yours that the state looks at when it looks at the income within the area versus, and the property value in the area to determine how much money they're gonna give us. Welcome to our world.
Well, if there's no more questions, I think that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything to add before we close?
Sounds like to me we need to rally and go to the State House.
We're not allowed to have that many people together all at the same time.
Actually, there was supposed to be a rally in
There was.
Columbus next week
Yeah.
over the voucher system. Let's not even get into how this school district would lose money in that situation. But that's actually been canceled. So,
Hey,
I guess you're gonna have to go online to complain right now.
I'm the president of the anti-levy committee now, and I'm not voting for this tax until we fight the state for all it's worth and get our money that we deserve.
But that's just hurting the school district when you do that.
Well, we have to do something. We have to figure out something. If we have to get an attorney, if we have to rent buildings out, do something temporarily to gain some money.
Bob, be respectful.
I've been a real estate agent, and I'm just gonna tell you right now that
I'm respectful, man.
your houses right now are probably $30,000 to $50,000 more than any other school district. So, saying that, you really should support, in the end of the day, this is not our kids' fault. This is for our kids. Just a funny little story. My youngest, I was kind of what we were talking about this when I was doing tonight, and I showed him my pay stub. And I said, what's, how much do you make a year? So I showed him, and he said, what's all this, all the taxes, where's this all going? I said, well, honey, there's people that are retired, who are paying their Social Security. And I know a lot of people, I'm not opposed to them, as far as security is like, I said,
they paid their Social Security. You're not paying their Social Security. They paid that in. That's their money. That's not ours.
well, but we're still paying into.
I know, but
Medicare.
that money was paid in by those people when they worked. That's their
No,
money.
I know, that's what I'm saying, we're keeping it going, that's what I'm saying.
No, you're paying for yours when you draw it.
Okay, and our kids that, I think the school district does a fantastic job, I mean, most of the kids go to college, they're gonna recycle and come and support the schools. That's what I'm saying, right now, as a community, we need to support the schools. That's in the bottom line, we need to support our churches, our hospitals, our everything, so if we can, as a community, that's what makes it. As soon as we stop supporting this, that's when it falls apart. So I think everybody really just needs to kind of, really in the heart. I'm sure that you guys, when you went to school, a lot of the, people that are retired now, you had nice new schools. Our kids deserve this just as much as what when you guys went to school. So let's keep it going. I mean, it's just, we're gonna get recycled every, these kids are graduating this year. They're gonna start having kids. They're gonna move back to the community. We're gonna want them to support the schools. So for you to say, I'm not gonna vote on this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you.
I'm saying that for the benefit of our children who are gonna be paying taxes in the future if it doesn't stop.
Please, let me come do a cost analysis of your house, of what it is worth now and when these levies don't pass, because it's gonna drop.
If it does, it does. It's the principle of the point here.
Thank you for letting me speak.
You're very
I'm
welcome.
not the best speaker in the world, but it's from my heart.
I believe you. I believe you're a good person.
I mean, I feel like we can argue all night about principle and about how the state funding is messed up. But at the end of the day, it's about the kids. I mean, we travel around the state of Ohio to different schools for sports, and we walk into these brand new, giant, beautiful new schools. And our kids are like, why is ours like that? Well, it's because of the way the state paid for it. We don't get that benefit. And now our kids are coming home and, the fact of the matter is, it's not scare taxes, it's a fact. They might not even have, aside from not having a new school, they might not have FFA. They might not be able to play the sport that they love. At the end of the day, it's about the kids. The way the state formula is messed up. We can argue that, but why, it's a 5-year renewable levy, meaning we could pass this levy now, we could spend 5 years going to the state to argue on behalf of our school to get this fixed, and then 5 years from now, if you want to make a different decision, make a different decision. But let's think about the kids right now and let them know that we care about them. I mean, yes, we want to I hate taxes. I was on the no tax ranking bandwagon for a long time, but you got to look at who it affects and how it affects the future of our own community and the kids that we're turning out from this area. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
A no vote does not equate to we don't care about it.
That's your opinion.
No, but Bob, like I told you when we talked last week, I agree with everything you're saying. The problem is, and I also said, change isn't going to come from Columbus because this school levy fails. All it's going to do is hurt the students. You people out here have to help make that fight in Columbus. If enough people make that fight in Columbus, then something's going to happen. But failure of this levy won't do it.
Probably.
Vote Democrat.
Let me add to their, let me add to their comment. So, my name is John Cross. I represent you at the State House. I'm your state representative, represent 83rd District. And I wanted to be here tonight because I wanted to hear the honest conversations that are happening. I'm on the Finance Committee, and we do have a bill that is going to try to address the school funding formulas that have been outdated or unconstitutional when I was in middle school. If it was easy, it would have been done by now. It's certainly not easy. The problem I have with the bill is if we pass that bill today as is, it doesn't fix Van Buren's formulas problem. We've got a formula problem. And so there's going to be a lot of districts. So you, quite frankly, you don't want to be a unique district when it comes to funding formula, okay? You don't want to be the lone soldier off the island. So even if we were to pass a bill, and this goes a further conversation, God, let's hope we have a Supreme Court that deems it constitutional. We're still going to have to work to fix the formula because what I need Van Buren to be, instead of $2,800 per pupil, I need to get you up to about $4,000 to $6,000 per pupil. We need to get your per student pupil up. We need the state of Ohio to. Oh, I'm so sorry. We need the state of Ohio. we need the state of Ohio. I don't have coronavirus. We need the state of Ohio to pump more money in to take the burden off your shoulders. Okay, so you're absolutely right. We got to get the state dollars back locally. So we're working through this process. If we don't have this done in 5 years, might as well fire the entire legislature, the governor, everyone else, because we've got to. Because Van Buren, look at Family City Schools. It is going to happen across the state. You're not in the only boat here. It's happening across the state. The pressure we're feeling is all these school districts are going through levies, and everyone's having the same troubles. So and then you've got coronavirus, stock market, and anything else you want to throw at it that can really make for an interesting election day. So the point is, you got to get your people out to the polls. And what I can tell you, since I've been engaged in this process, since asking for the performance audit, I personally have seen good progress. Okay, there's more communication. The board is interacting. Congratulations, you have a new superintendent. You have a new treasurer. There's great things happening here. So if I was an investor looking at this, I would say, okay, I would be willing to invest because you're seeing progress. That performance audit is going to help them make the board make good business decisions because there might be things that they didn't see that they're going to show that. So all in all, if you're looking at this as an investment, they're doing the things they can legally do, but the burden is right here, the state of Ohio. We've got to get it fixed at the state. And you can blame the state all day long, you should, because that's where we've got to get this fixed. And we just have to get that done. So that's why I'm here tonight. I had other places to be, but this is the place to be because we have to get this right. And schools are a community's identity. And you might have a legislator that says, well, how many students go to school here? Okay, you're a big school. Let me pick on my home county, Hardin County. I have 5 school districts. There's an argument out there that says we don't need 5 school districts, we don't need 5 superintendents, we don't need 5 treasurers. You can keep your mascot, your school colors, and your Friday night football games, but do I go from 5 districts to 2 districts? Because we have schools that are less than 400 students. So we have to just be fiscally smart about how we look at all this, because education is just going to change as we move through this. But we've got to get the formula. But even if we pass the formula tomorrow, that doesn't fix the problem. We have to fix the formula problem to get your per pupil dollars up, get the burden off you financially, get the burden back on the state.
So John, how do you expect some of our taxpayers who are having all of these issues to have their voices heard? Because he is so frustrated.
Oh, I'm confused. I'm confused too.
But you can't.
It's also challenging because you think, okay, everything. You think about the 83rd district, and that's not all of Ohio. Think about the legislators who represent inner city Cleveland. Think about the legislators like Jay Edwards that is fighting for Southeast Ohio, who has tremendous poverty and doesn't like the form. So we have to think about all these different legislative districts and what that looks like. And that's what makes this challenging, because if we think it's going to be good for Northwest Ohio, I guarantee you it is not good for Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. And so there's going to have to be some mergers and acquisitions in how we do this. And it's not a one size, there's 600 school districts in the state of Ohio. There is not a perfect formula that's going to fit all those school districts. So what you need is to make sure that when we do something, whether it's Van Buren or Kenton, that we get in there and we massage it and mold it a little bit. Or do we wipe this whole thing out and say, does it need to be sales tax? Do we need to get everybody on an equal playing field? I mean, there's some big, challenging status quo questions we need to ask the legislature. Throw out property taxes, throw out income taxes. Does it need to be sales tax driven? Now's the time to start thinking about this, because even though there is a piece of legislation, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the right fix. So I hope you engage. We welcome the ideas. We welcome your input. There's information about my office. I'm here in the district a lot. I'd be more than happy to meet with you and listen to your ideas and thoughts. It's an open invitation, because that's the best way. We just need to hear from you.
So you said they've been working on these formulas since you were in grade school?
I think it was unconstitutional in the mid-90s.
You're in the grade school and they still have not resolved it yet, and you're asking for 5 more years, and then maybe they might get it resolved then, or make something better. So if you talk about it forever and it doesn't get done.
And then you've got a Supreme.
You're going to try and do a good job.
But then you've got a Supreme Court that could, if the Supreme Court changes politically, they can politicize the bench, and you'll never have a constitutionally. So the point is, if it was easy, we would have had it figured out by now. But we've got to. We can't afford 5 more years to sit around. Now, last thing I want to make a point of. I looked up, your school report card is a C. That's a bunch of bull. You're not a C school district. Okay? It's a good school. There's a couple D's in here, and it's because the true problem to the funding is really not the funding formula, it's your school report card and all the unfunded mandates that we make you do. All the testing, all the federal mandates, the state monies. We have to fix the school report card, blow it up, get rid of it. Quite frankly, it costs us, the taxpayers, $14 million a year to produce this school report card. That is, might as well put it in the recycle bin, because it doesn't do anything for our districts. So they're fixing school vouchers, not necessarily a big deal for us here in the 83rd district. Report card, big deal for us. And then and the funding formula. Those are 2 pieces of legislation I think that we can get done in the next couple of General Assemblies that will really make a huge impact on how this all works. Unfunded mandates kill businesses, kill schools.
It could be unlimited too.
What I'm hearing you saying is that there's no easy answer, you're not gonna bail us out. In 5 years, in 10 years, this isn't gonna bail us out. We need to take care of our own.
Quite frankly, we gave you record funding in education in this budget, but you don't see it and feel it because you have a local levy.
But that's the thing, somebody, when we went to school here, when Rod went to school here, and Ed went to school here, and Steve went to school here, and I went to school here, somebody paid for us to go to school here.
Yes.
Somebody stood up in the community and said, you're gonna get a good education. It's my time. I have 23 members of my family currently have went through Van Buren or in Van Buren. I have no immediate kids. My son graduates this year. I don't need to pay the taxes. I'm gonna support it because they supported me. I had a good experience when I went here.
I would say the same thing. I had three kids go through this school, graduate, they're all gone. I'm in the retired ranks right now. But it was a fantastic school, a great experience for them. And some of the things that made it good and a great experience are the things that are gonna be cut if we don't step up and pass this levy. And, you know, my experience is when something's cut, it's probably gone. It may come back magically, but when it's cut, it's cut. And I'm talking about Go Ag. In a community like this, with all the farmers, they're cutting the ag, and I don't know, home ec, whatever they're gonna cut. You know, Chopar, for crying out loud, 2 of my kids were in Chopar, 4 years apiece, and they're gonna cut Chopar. I mean, it was a fantastic experience for them. So I would encourage you to fight at the state to get things changed, but this problem is not.
My understanding too is from some old information you had that our tax burden here has been less than the surrounding school districts for quite a long time. So we've been fortunate,
Yeah.
you know, and then now the math is changing and now we have to step up.